friends, and welcome back to the English session of online classes. In the last class, we people started off a new chapter, chapter 5 from your book Flamingo. The name of the chapter is Indigo. As I told you while we were going through the chapter that this indigo means what? Actually, in this chapter, we have come across till now one phrase named as indigo sharecroppers or indigo sharecropping. I told you people, sharecroppers, it means a type of system in which the farmers take a piece of land on rent to grow their crops, and in turn of rent they have to give crops or their harvest. Now, what is indigo? Indigo is a kind of a blue colored flower which is raised or which is grown, from which dye is made. No. I'm not talking about DIE dye. I'm talking about DYE dye. The one which is used for coloring purpose, coloring of clothes and all. Yes, that's what this chapter is about. But this chapter is not only about indigo sharecropping. A numerous number of things are imparted through this chapter. We people will see in this chapter about the British government. Yes, this incident is based on the time when the Britishers were ruling our country and the freedom struggle was going on. Then we will see a lesson being taught by Gandhiji on self-reliance. As I told you in the last class also, self-reliance means self-confidence. In this chapter, a very beautiful combination is given of the fact that if you believe yourself, you can conquer any challenges. And in this chapter, the great leader Mahatma Gandhi, he did the same thing. He taught a lesson not only to the poor peasants, but to the Indians. The lesson indigo is a bond between Indian independence and self-reliance, and definitely the total eradication of sharecropping. How? That you will come to know by the time we reach to the end. Yesterday's lesson, what we have gone through, just let me have a quick revision of it for you to remember what we did. We have seen that this lesson, which has been written by Louis Fisher. About Louis Fisher, I'm not going to go in detail because that I have done in the previous video. So Louis Fisher, when he went to meet Gandhiji, as this lesson is an excerpt being taken from the biography being written on Gandhi, he went to meet Gandhiji in his Sevagram ashram. This was at the time of 1942. And then he says that when he went to meet Gandhi, Gandhiji said that I would like to share with you that particular incident which urged him, which you can say that which gave him an idea. Here that is what the word urge I would like to relate to. Which gave him an idea how to chase, how to make the Britishers leave the country. He says that this incident was of around some 1917. So he started like this, that in 1916, 1917, a year, okay, maybe. And in this 1916 December, there was one annual meeting of the Indian National Congress in Lucknow. Gandhiji, you all know that the Indian National Congress was working very hard, was a very big name in the freedom fight, and Gandhiji was there for that meeting. Around 2301 delegates came around the country and many more were there. During this meeting, Gandhiji says he recalled one peasant also came over there. Now, peasant, a farmer. He came to meet Gandhiji, and he says that he was not any different from the other peasants of India, very poor, very weak, and he said that he has come all the way from Champaran to take Gandhiji to Champaran. Gandhiji was shocked because he has never heard the name Champaran, and he started thinking about what this man might be here for. Now, who was that man? That man was Rajkumar Shukla, like all the other farmers, illiterate but very firm, very determined. Actually, his place, the people, were under a long term contract of sharecropping, and they had been suffering in the hands of the British landlords. So, because of this reason, he had thought that he must do something, and someone has told him that maybe go and meet Gandhi, and there he was in Lucknow to take Gandhi to Champar. Gandhiji was very busy. He told Shukla that he has got lots of appointments. He has to go to Kanpur and then many other parts of India. And then Shukla accompanied him everywhere. Wherever Gandhiji went, he went over there. Gandhiji returned to Ahmedabad, and this fellow also came there. And for weeks he never left Gandhiji's side. He begged to Gandhi, fix one date. Gandhiji was impressed by his uh, firmness of his aim to take him with him to Champaran. Then Gandhiji said that, okay, we will do one thing. I'll be going to Calcutta, and after I'll go to Calcutta, from there you just take me to your place, Champaran, where you want me to go with you. And then he said so. Now, months passed. Shukla waited for him in Calcutta. That too on his haunches. Last class I have told you what haunches means. And there in Calcutta, after Gandhiji had completed his meeting, as promised, Gandhiji, along with him, boarded the train to Bihar. When he boarded the train to Bihar, Patna, Shukla, after getting down over there, took him to not to his house but to a lawyer's house. You know who was the lawyer? The lawyer was Rajendra Prasad. Yes, correct, Rajendra Prasad. He was the president of the Congress party later, he became, and also the president of Free India. And then when they reached over there, Mr. Prasad was not at home. Instead, his servants met them, and they knew it very well that Shukla was a poor peasant, a yeoman, and always used to come over there. So because of that reason, they assumed that Gandhiji also might be one such person, because he came along with Shukla, no? And you know how Gandhiji used to be clad up in a very simple dress. So they jumped to a conclusion, Shukla is a peasant, so Gandhiji is also a poor peasant. And they made them both to sit down in the ground only over there. Did not allow to come inside. And not only that, they did not allow Gandhiji to draw water from the well, because if a drop of water falls while taking it out on the ground, then automatically the whole place will get polluted. This was the peak of untouchability, my dear students, at that time before independence in our country. Now, this is what we have done previously. Now, let's move on to the next part. Gandhi decided to go first to Muzaffarpur, which was en route to Champaran, to obtain more complete information about conditions than Shukla was capable of imparting. He accordingly sent a telegram to Professor J.B. Kripalani of the Arts College in Muzaffarpur, whom he had seen at Tagore's Shantiniketan school. The train arrived at midnight, 15 April 1917. Kripalani was waiting at the station with a large body of students. Gandhi stayed there for 2 days in the home of Professor Malkani, a teacher in a government school. It was an extraordinary thing in those days, Gandhi commented, for a government professor to harbor a man like me. In smaller localities, the Indians were afraid to show sympathy for advocates of home rule. Okay, my dear students. Now, here we people have seen after reaching Patna, basically he went to Dr. Rajendra Prasad's house. He was not available. So Gandhi decided that instead of going to Muzaffarpur, actually instead of going to Champaran, he will first go to Muzaffarpur, and then he will obtain the entire detail or information regarding this entire sharecropping. Because Shukla being illiterate, he he don't think that he could have imparted him or he could give him the entire information. So because of that reason, he telegrammed to Professor J.B. Kripalani. J.B. Kripalani was a professor in the Arts College of Muzaffarpur, whom he happens to meet during the time of one meeting which was held in Tagore's Shanti Niketan school. The train reached Muzaffarpur at midnight, April 15th, 1917. April 15, 1917, you just think over. He said that he had met Rajkumar Shukla in December 1916 meeting, and right now when he had boarded the train and he instead of going to Champaran decided to drop down at Muzaffarpur, it was April 15, 1917. See the number of months Shukla might have passed, or he showed how much of determination. That's what the story is about: determination, self confidence, etc. So let's come back to this. On 15 April 1917, midnight, train reached Muzaffarpur. At the station, there was a big crowd of students along with Professor Kripalani. They were eagerly waiting for Gandhi. Now, Gandhi, in that place, Muzaffarpur, he stayed in another professor's house. His name is Professor Malkani, and he was a teacher in a government school. It was an extraordinary thing in those days, Gandhiji says so. You know why extraordinary? Because Professor Malkani was a government employee, and whose government was there? British government. And because of that reason, for a government official, government professor, to give harbor here means a shelter or place to stay, to a man like Gandhiji. Now, why man like Gandhiji? A man like Gandhiji? Because Gandhiji was an integral part of freedom fighting. He was one of the most important person who was involved in freedom fighting, and because of that reason, giving him shelter means taking a big risk. And that's why in smaller localities the Indians, they were afraid to give shelter to this home rule advocates. Let's move further. The news of Gandhi's advent and of the nature of his mission spread quickly through Muzaffarpur and to Champaran. Sharecroppers from Champaran began arriving on foot and by conveyance to see their champion. Muzaffarpur lawyers called on Gandhi to brief him. They frequently represented peasant groups in court. They told him about their cases and reported the size of their fee. Okay, now Muzaffarpur was the halting that he has taken before going to Champaran, the actual destination, and the news that Gandhi has arrived there had spread like a jungle fire. And not only to Muzaffarpur, even to Champaran. The sharecroppers, the poor victims, they had been traveling on their foot to watch, to see who is this man, the champion who has arrived over there to solve their matter. Muzaffarpur lawyers, they were called to give briefing to Gandhiji. You all know what is briefing. It means to give in short the details of the entire matter. And they had been representing, means they had been carrying the cases in the court on behalf of the peasants. And they also told him not only about the case, but the amount of fees that they were extracting from these peasants because of this case. Now, what was Gandhiji's reaction? Gandhi cheated the lawyers for collecting big fee from the sharecroppers. He said, I have come to the conclusion that we should stop going to law courts. Taking such cases to the courts does little good. Where the peasants are so crushed and fear stricken, law courts are useless. The real relief for them is to be free from fear. Gandhi and Gandhi's ways of work. When the lawyers said that this is the case and this is the amount that we people are taking as fees from them, Gandhi cheated them. He scolded them for collecting so big fees from the sharecroppers. And then he said that after listening to you all, I have reached to one conclusion. And the conclusion is that there is no use of taking these cases of sharecropping to the courts. Because courts cannot do any good to these peasants who are crushed down first under the landlords, the sharecropping system, and then your fees. They are fear stricken, डरे हुए हैं. Court is useless for them. The first relief is to be relieved from this fear that they have in their heart. Now I'm going to tell you what this sharecropping is all about. So this paragraph is really an important one. Most of the arable land in the Champaran district was divided into large estates owned by Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants to plant 3/20ths or 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. This was done by long-term contract. Okay, so this is what the indigo sharecropping is all about. As it has been said that most of the arable land means the land where the crops could be cultivated, agriculturable lands in Champaran district were owned by the Englishmen. Our country, but lands were owned by the British people. And the Indians, they were tenants. Remember, I told you tenants means what? Kiraedar, means living on rent. And the chief commercial crop means for business purpose, for selling purpose, for commercial purpose, the main crop which was grown was indigo. And you know what this indigo sharecropping says? It was a long-term contract, means from ages it was going on over there, from years it was going on over there, that the landlords will give the Indian farmers land on rent. And they will compel them, they will force them that on 15% of the land that they have taken on rent, compulsorily they have to grow indigo. And the entire indigo that they are growing, the entire harvest, they have to give to the Britishers as rent. This was indigo sharecropping. Now, okay, this was going on from ages. Then where the trouble started? So now, the trouble started here. Listen. Presently, the landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. Their sharecropping arrangement was irksome to the peasants, and many signed willingly. Those who resisted engaged lawyers. The landlords hired thugs. Meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed and they wanted their money back. At this point, Gandhi arrived in Champaran. Okay, so this was the reason for the entire matter. The demolishing of indigo arrangement. Now, how it is? You people have understood what is 15% that land raising indigo and then giving as rent to the landlords. Everything was going on. But then what happened? While this was going on, Germany, they have developed synthetic indigo meanwhile. And this synthetic indigo were much more cheaper and were catching up the market at a higher rate than the natural indigo. So the British landlords, they said to the Indian peasants that if they want to come out of this sharecropping agreement, they have to pay a compensation. Poor Indian peasants, they are growing the indigo, they are not getting even a penny out of it, and they are asked that if they want to demolish this agreement, they have to pay a compensation to be released from this agreement. Sharecropping was already a trouble. It was already a trouble for these peasants. Some of them signed it willingly, but some, they resisted. And when they hired lawyers to fight the case, these landlords, they hired thugs, goons, gundas. And then, meanwhile, this information of synthetic indigo reached into the ears of our farmers also, the peasants also. And they said that, come on, give us the money back which we had given to you as compensation. So this was the entire matter. This was the problem what has arisen when it came to the demolishing of this indigo agreement and the compensation case. And this was the point when Gandhiji arrived in Champaran on the request of Rajkumar Shukla. So my dear students, today we will end up with this and we'll meet very soon for our next session. Till then, goodbye. Take care, stay home, stay safe.